Hi, my name is Jonathan Hicks. I'm back at the Dice Cup, and this evening I'm joined by
Chantal.
Steve.
Mark. And we've just finished playing Arkwright. Now let me just stand up here so you can see all of this. This is a real beast of a game. There's tons and tons of this. It's a very heavy euro. Essentially, it's an economic game. You're running a business, if you like. So there's 4 different kinds of factories, if you like, you can run. So you can produce bread, or clothing, or cutlery, or glass, lamp things. There we go. And you need to hire workers, that's these guys here, to run the factory, obviously. And one of the big themes of the game is it's all based around the Industrial Revolution. So as you go through the game, one of the things you want to do is replace the workers here with little machines, because the workers cost a certain amount of money to pay, but the machines are much cheaper. There's a nice little labour market represented on the board over here. So as people take workers off this board, it does 2 things. First of all, the cost to pay the workers increases. Obviously, the fewer people are unemployed, if you like, the more people in work, the greater the demand for labour, so you've got to pay them more. And that's obviously going to make the machines better in that case. But also, it increases the demand for the 4 different types of goods. If there are more people working, the more people have got disposable income to spend on bread and clothing, etc. So that's part of it. You're trying to produce in each of these factories. Now, another aspect here is you're producing goods of a certain quality, if you like. So this particular factory, it cost me a certain amount of money to buy, and it produces goods, if you like, at a quality of 13. And then I set the price here. I can decide how much I want to charge. So in this case, I decided to charge 8. So I'm selling £13 quality goods, if you like, for a cost of only £8. So lots of people think, oh, that's great. And the difference between those two, in this case the 5, is represented on these tracks in the middle here. And it's what you call your appeal. So in this case, I could set it, there we go, at 5. And then that means I can sell 5 goods potentially. But if somebody, as like in this case, have set their markers much higher than me, then people are going to buy their goods before me because their goods are more appealing, if you like. So you're trying to, there's a trade-off between the higher the price is, the more money you're getting when you're selling your goods, obviously, which is very important. But the lower it is typically, the more your appeal is, so the more goods you can sell. So that's a very interesting mechanism as well. Now, if I haven't made it clear, you're trying to make as much money as you can, but there's also a stock trading element to the game. So you start off with a certain number of shares in your company, and when you sell the goods in this way in the market, then the share type people look at your company and decide how good it is. So as you sell more goods, then you move up on this track around the outside. If you have the most appeal, that increases your share price. And if you sell more goods than anyone else, that also increases your share price. But just notice, for each of these sort of spaces you move up, the share price is actually underneath. So it's gradually increasing your share price as you go through the game. In terms of how you actually win the game, all that matters is the value of your shares. So money in hand is not worth anything at the end of the game. You kind of get an opportunity to cash it all in to buy shares, but you're buying at whatever your share price is. So it's very expensive. You know, obviously you want to buy shares early on in the game and try and get the share price to go up, rather than just getting cash and buying shares at the end. But that can be quite tricky. Now, there's an awful lot going on here. I'm not going to explain all of it by any means, but just to add into the mix here, there's then a bunch of other things. If you produce too many goods that you can actually sell, then you can store them in this factory here. You have to pay these workers as well, though, and then potentially you can ship them across sort of abroad, if you like, and you get quite a lot of money from shipping. You have to acquire these ships here, and the problem with that, though, is it makes your share price go down. You advance through the game by taking this market keeps shifting through the round, so everyone produces and sells bread first, then clothing, cutlery, and then the lamps. And then this is where you're paying everyone. There's a nice little event that takes place at the end of each round, which could be good or could be bad, which varies things. And also, I need to explain the actions. I probably should have done that earlier on. But in terms of how you actually do them, it's fairly straightforward. You have these little tiles here. You just pick one. So in this case, this is buying and selling shares, for example. And you have to then pick one of the spots here. So you've got to pay the money at the side to take the action. It's like an administrative fee. If it's been used before, I can't use this one, so I'd have to go in a different space. So that's why there's different prices here. But some of them, depending on how much you pay, you get sort of better value for the action. So this is the buying machines action. So if I've paid 10, then that's above the 6 one, so I could buy 2 machines. So you can buy machines, buy and sell shares, buy better factories. increase your advertising. This temporarily adds bonuses to the values of your goods. You can hire more workers, improve your factories. There's various different actions you can take here. But one of the nice things is after you've taken an action, you can then acquire these sort of ships or bonus actions, if you like. They are better actions than the ones you start the game with. And they're kind of upside down here. But there's a bunch of these special ability tiles that will give you all kinds of helpful bonuses as you go through the game. All right, what do we think to all that?
It's very dry and it's very heavy. However, the theme is really, really strong, and it's actually very like the actions all make sense. I make terrible mistakes all the way through, and I really want to play it again. That's how good it is.
Okay, Steve?
It's immensely heavy. It took me hours to learn how to just teach the game. They timed me as I was teaching it as well. It took 45 minutes or something like that. Once you're in the game, though, it actually makes sense. I think Mark did extremely well in his first game. He kind of got it after a few rounds, knew what he was doing, knew how to make money. And it's just nice that all the mechanisms Jonathan's saying about the job market, the more people in work, there's more demand, but people were fighting. I think the clothes track was people making the clothes more appealing, because 3 of them were making the same clothes. I wasn't making clothes, it was brilliant. They were all fighting. They were all making their clothes as cheap as possible to try and sell them the limited amount of clothes they've got. The more machines you buy, the more workers get sacked and they come back into the job market, which means there's less demand for your products. So even though you're making more because you've got these machines, there's less products out there, so you have to ship. But shipping takes you a while to get around the hang of, and if you don't ship your contracts by the end of the game, you can lose quite a lot of value in your company for kind of unfulfilling orders. Some people will hate this game, because of just it's very mathsy. It's very. Jonathan made a little mime earlier about saying, well, if I do that and then I'll sell these, but if he does that, then no, I'll need to do this down. But if I do that, I'm actually going to lose money in my market because I've got so many workers. Well, what if I close off the last portion of this and do that? And there's so much of that going on throughout the whole game that some people will just not want to play this game. If you're not one of those people, if you like Power Grid or something like this, and it's not going to be too heavy for you, you'll really enjoy this game.
Okay. Mark?
Yeah, this game's as dry as the Sahara in the dry season. It is dry, but every single system makes sense from a running of a company, particularly in the period with the people and everything working together. It all feels and it adds to it in the way that you are doing what you think you should be doing, which makes it a lot easier for me to understand straight off, because I know what I'm trying to do, because I just have to relate to it to running a business, and it just makes sense to me, which is really important for something so heavy. It's really good. The fact that I can't think of a better representation in any game I've played of competing markets and how other people adjusting their price of their goods and how much they reduce affects you. There's no game I've played that represents as well as this does in one big package.
Okay, rating?
I think I would give it somewhere between 8.5 and a 9. I really like it.
Okay. Steve?
I'd second Mark. There's no game that does what this game does as well as this game. The supply and demand and just the little decisions you've got, competing against other people, going after someone else when they've just changed the price. You can change the price to just pip them again. It's just lovely. It's more Mark's sort of game than mine. It's an incredibly well-crafted game. I'm going to rate it 7.5.
Okay. Chantal?
I'll go for an 8.
All right. Theme is really important to me, and I struggle a lot with dry games because there's just nothing there to grab me. But the interesting thing about this one is it's very dry, but it's also very thematic. As Mark was saying, it's dry because the theme is dry, but actually all the different mechanisms in the game make sense. If you're trying to run a business, you do need to consider all these things. And having some experience of running a business myself, it does really put you there. So some people are going to enjoy that and some people aren't. You know, if running a business appeals to you, this simulates it superbly. I think better than anything else I've seen, as Mark was saying, really. I really enjoyed it, but at the same time, it was a real brain burner. You're thinking all the time, as Steve was saying, you're often having to calculate, if I sell this many goods and I pay my workers, oh no, I'm going to lose money if I do that. Okay, I need to sell fewer goods maybe, a cheaper price or a higher price, and you're trying to do all those different costs and calculations each time. So it can slow down a bit because of that. It's a long game. We're talking 4 hours. But if you're happy with the kind of mental strain of doing all those calculations, it's great. I thought it was really, really good. So in terms of my enjoyment of the game, I think it'd be on an 8 out of 10. All right, thanks very much for watching. That was Arkwright.